So the story that you see on the screen right now, this might confuse some people because that's not what this video is about. This video is about systemic racism. And for the first time ever, I'm going to publicly acknowledge that it exists. The reason I'm going to acknowledge that systemic racism exists is probably not the one that you're thinking. The reason this story makes me think of it, well, let's get into the story and then I'll circle back like Jin Saki. How's that sound? So the story that I have for today I'd like to go over is a story coming from the German Village neighborhood group. So it's a town hall meeting with Columbus police. German Village, if you're not familiar with the Columbus area, is an extremely affluent neighborhood. It's kind of south and east of downtown, just south of 70. I don't know. It's just south and east of downtown. It's a very historic area. It's a very wealthy area, and I'll go ahead and also say that it's an area that, in the past, a lot of people might have marched from that area to the downtown area during the protests against Columbus Police Department. I did pull up a real estate website just to give you an idea of what this neighborhood is like, because I think showing you kind of what home prices is like might be a good indicator of kind of what kind of neighborhood this is. So I started going through, and a lot of these houses, I don't know, 3,000 square foot house, that might be pretty big for a lot of people. Here's a 2,100 square foot house. This is a fairly reasonably sized house, if you ask me. Let's see. This house is being sold for $965,000, almost $1 million for a 2,100 square foot house. Let's see, 2,600 square foot for $800,000, 2,200 square foot for $799,000. There's some real gems down there. Let's see. Oh, we'll round up, 1,700 square foot house for $600,000. How many people watching this video right now live in a house that's larger than 1,700 square feet, and it costs significantly less than $600,000? Here's another $500,000 house for 2,000 square foot. The list goes on. Ooh, here's a gem. 1,326 square feet. That's smaller than many apartments that I've lived in my life. $500,000. And the list goes on. So that should just give you kind of an idea. Oops, wrong article. That'll give you an idea of what kind of neighborhood we're talking about with German Village. Well, what's happening in German Village that's making them want a town hall with Columbus police? I'll read a little bit of the story. So German Village is known for its neighborhood charm, but a recent rise in crime has residents on edge. Neighbors are now ready to fight back as crime turned fatal this week in a shootout that left a man dead. Columbus police say 2 men fired at each other late Wednesday night, but they are still investigating exactly how the altercation started. The man who survived told police he was defending himself and that he holds a concealed carry permit. So I'll go ahead and read a little thing that was put out by someone in their neighborhood group. Dear neighbors, you most likely have heard by now that we have experienced another shooting in German Village. This time it resulted in a fatality at the doorsteps of the German Village Society at the corner of Willow and Lizelle. We are trying to gather information and will report as we have more information. We are also working to convene a town hall meeting as soon as possible with Columbus police regarding the uptick in violent crimes. I hope to be able to make an announcement today. N4N, I don't know what that means, when it posts at 4 p.m. As been mentioned before, we continue to stay vigilant as we are seeing we are not immune to the violence that has become pervasive in our city. So the reason that this particular story caught my eye is because violent crime across the country has risen exponentially. Violent crime in the city of Columbus has risen exponentially. As I'm recording this video right now, the city has, pretty sure it was this morning, 167 homicides. The previous record was 174. So we're just a few short of the record, and we still have a few months to go in the year. As far as felonious assaults, there's been over 1,100 felonious assaults in the city this year. The majority of them are shootings. So let's just say 20% of them are not. Then conservatively speaking, there have been about 800 people shot in the city of Columbus this year, and 167 of those people have died. Now, the neighborhood of German Village has not been experiencing these crimes. The majority of these homicides have occurred in neighborhoods that everybody in the Columbus area knows. Neighborhoods of North Linden, East Columbus, around Barton and Livingston. That's a pretty busy area. The South End, the West Side or Hilltop, and the Bottoms or Franklinton. That is where the majority of these homicides have occurred. So of the 800 people shot and the 166 people who have died, one of them occurred in this affluent neighborhood in Columbus called German Village, where many of the homes are valued at over $1 million. And because there was one homicide in their neighborhood, they are convening a town hall meeting. So they get, because of their stature in the community, they get to have audience with Columbus police to address the violence that has come to their community. Now, the reason that I'm going to go ahead and say that this is an acknowledgement of systemic racism is because what they're going to do, and this is happening in other neighborhoods in the city too, I'll leave those for other stories, other videos, is they're going to ask that Columbus police give more attention to their neighborhood. The way the officers are going to be able to give more attention to that neighborhood is by giving less attention to other neighborhoods. So less attention is going to be demanded. It's going to be demanded that the officers give less attention to neighborhoods where the majority of the crime is happening in order to give more attention to this area because they had one homicide. These areas where the majority of crime is happening, the majority of those victims of these violent crimes are minorities. I haven't checked in the last month or so, but last time I checked, somewhere between 75 and 80% of the victims of violent crime in the city of Columbus have been African American. So resources are going to be pulled away from those areas where they're needed most and put into areas like this where people don't feel safe because they experienced one homicide. Now, I'll go ahead and say that I wouldn't feel very comfortable if a homicide happened in my neighborhood either, but I would probably acknowledge that it might be an outlier. I'm going to digress for a moment, talk a little bit about what happened when we pulled out of Afghanistan and why we were there in the first place. Because I actually had a conversation with one of my sergeants about this very topic when the botched with Afghanistan withdrawal occurred. And it's very much like this, because the reason we were in Afghanistan was so that we would fight the enemies there and not have to fight them here. That's the best way to police a major city as well. You put a lot of officers in the neighborhoods that have the most crime, and you keep them busy there. That way, the neighborhoods where there's very little crime, they don't have time or opportunity to leave their neighborhood and go commit crimes in those neighborhoods, because that's what's happening. A German Village doesn't have this like groundswell of innate crime or criminals who have been grown and raised in German Village that are now becoming violent. What's happening is that people from these other neighborhoods that are known for violence are making their way into German Village and causing problems there. Now, if I were in charge, what I would do is I would take all additional resources that we have, and I would flood those areas that are known for having violent crime and do my best to arrest and at least harass the people who are committing those crimes so that they don't have the opportunity to go into a place like German Village, or to go into a place like the Short North, or go to a place like the Ohio State campus and commit crimes. But what we're doing instead is we're leaving those areas that need the police the most, we're leaving them with fewer officers, making them less safe, so that these other people who have money and have privilege can feel a little bit more safe. If you don't understand the faulty logic in that system, you need to re-examine your priorities. Those are my thoughts for today. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you soon.